Hello and welcome back to the channel. We're back 3 weeks off. That was pretty nice, wasn't it? Uh, I say off. Off is a very loose term because we've been listening to a lot of music in that time. Um, I'm joined, of course, again by Vanessa and Chris. And it is exciting times. We are diving head first into the 70s. So I'm excited. I hope you guys watching are excited. And Vanessa, how was 1970? How do you feel?
Pretty good. Like my top, it was pretty, it wasn't easy, but like nothing else made sense. It was more ordering everything else, like the honorable mentions, of course, and then everything after that. Because they made a list of top 40 albums actually. So yeah, there was a lot of great albums. Like everything top 40 is eight and above. So even if I don't mention it, obviously there's lots of great albums this year.
It is a deep year. Like there's
Mhm.
so much
Yeah.
going on, and so much. I had a longer list that I just didn't get to everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, what about you, Chris? How you doing?
Yeah. I listened to a lot for this. Some classics that I had heard, pieces of, but maybe never sat and listened to in entirety. So yeah, definitely a really good chance for me to kind of catch up and discover some new stuff. It was really hard to parse down by the end of it. There were several non-negotiables, and then that only leaves a couple of spots, and several things were fighting for, the last couple spots. So I'm sorry I can't talk about everything that I listened to. I didn't listen to much that I didn't like. So yeah, overall, just a great. Well, obviously, I'm prioritizing stuff that I think I would like because we're timed. But the point stands. I didn't listen to anything acclaimed that I found to be like a stinker or not worth my time. So yeah, just a great year, and obviously. We'll get into it, but I think a cool entry into the new decade. They're still trying to figure it out, but yeah, just a lot of awesome work. So very excited.
Yeah, I kind of made brief reference at the end of the 60s recap, which if you haven't seen it, go check that out, and all our other videos in this series. Um, but 1971 is the year that has the book written about it. It is like the year for music ever, which is quite the claim that it's been given. But it is a crazy year. But I've always told myself that I like 1970 more than 1971. So it'll be interesting to see if that claim stands through this project because this is the ultimate way to find out, right? I'm diving in properly.
It's true. It's true.
So the order we're going with this time around, Vanessa's going to kick us off. I'm going to go in second, and Chris is going to end it all for us. And
Outstanding.
then, and then for 1971, we'll go back to our original order where I'll start, then Chris, then Vanessa. So without further ado, I know you're tired of hearing us talking about not albums. So Vanessa, please kick us off.
All right. So my 10 to 6 first. Number 10, Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Definitely my favorite album by them. Number 9, Elton John, Tumbleweed Connection. Number 8 is one that was new to me that absolutely blew me away the last few weeks. And that is Emmett Rhodes and his self-titled album, Emmett Rhodes, which is my first 10 of this list. Everything else is 10 here on out. So great year. Number 7, might shock some people, The Band and Stage Fright. Number 6, George Harrison, All Things Must Pass. Yeah, that was a late one, but unfortunately something else knocked it out. So the top 5. Number 5 is Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Um, undeniable album packed with heavy songs that you still hear all the time now, and with good reason. They still sound as fresh and as exciting as they've always been. And I can only imagine what it must have been like in 1970 hearing them for the first time. Like it's just insane when you think about it. And it's a pretty amazing feat that excitement has held up for over 50 years. And like, I don't even really know what else to say about it. Like, this is the album of the two that's got more like standout tracks that you hear individually. But yeah, great album. Number 4 is John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band, which is an album that started in like the 20s for me when I was started doing this. And then I just kept thinking about it and kept listening to it and kept going back to it, ended up in the teens, and now it's number 4. Like, I just absolutely fell in love with this album over the past couple of weeks. I always knew the album and I knew I liked it, but it just has sunk its claws into me. I find it just so raw and emotional, and I can't stop thinking about it, can't stop listening to it. Just really resonates with me, and I love how raw and emotional it is, and but the songs are still so memorable and still so catchy, and they really stick with you. And Mother is just such a gripping and emotional opener that just lets you know what you're in for. So that unfortunately did knock out George, but great album. Number 3, we talk about people having great years, and Black Sabbath is no exception. The self-titled debut is just fantastic. And that's why I didn't have a lot to say about Paranoid, because I couldn't think of anything to say about it without spoiling the fact that the debut was a little higher. This album still excites me. When I put it back on, I hadn't heard it in a long time. It was just like, this is so great, like beginning to end. I prefer it slightly to the other album just because it's a slightly tighter listen as an album to me, which is kind of splitting hairs, but I know it doesn't have the standout tracks that Paranoid has, but I just love the experience of listening to it. And this last couple weeks has made me realize just how much I love Black Sabbath overall. And I love the menacing mood and the mystery this album evokes. It just really resonates, and it's a captivating listen from beginning to end. So Paranoid may have more songs that work well individually, but I think as an album, I like this one just a little bit better. Number 2 is Led Zeppelin 3, which has always been my favorite Zeppelin album. And that's saying a lot because I love a lot of their albums. All their albums are rated pretty highly for me. This is the first one I ever connected with, and it's always held a special place in my heart. I like how there's a lot of variety on the album. It starts off swinging with the Immigrant Song, and it just keeps going from there. There's got some of my favorite Zeppelin ballads and some of my favorite bluesy Zeppelin, and just some rocking jams too. Like, I feel like it kind of has everything. It just really encapsulates all the things that made them great. So number 1 is Neil Young and After the Gold Rush, which I've always considered this my favorite Neil Young album, but it'd been quite a while since I'd listened to it in full. And when I returned to it for this week, I fell in love with it all over again. And I was reminded about why I love it so much and why I always considered it a favorite. Basically love every song. Like, I don't think there's a weak moment. The famous songs are great, but I also love the deep cuts too. And I'd kind of forgotten just how much until I went back to it. And in some ways, the album kind of takes me back to a specific time in my early 20s when I listened to it a lot and what I was feeling at the time. So it really just packs a little extra punch for that. So yeah, 1970.
I mean, I couldn't be much more happy to be wrong. That's a very, very good number 1. And hey, maybe I'll be looking back at my early 20s and how I was feeling when I was listening to that album at the time.
Yeah.
One thing to note, I guess, about how crazy this year is in terms of variety. Black Sabbath's self-titled album came out 3 months before Let It Be. How weird is that? They feel like they come from 2 completely different like times of music, but yeah, it's kind of a weird historical thing.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
So we have a little bit of overlap. 5 honorable mentions. I could have listed 15, but I of course didn't. Number 10, bit of a surprise for me, Deja Vu by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, which I always thought I preferred Crosby, Stills and Nash from 1969. But I came back to this album, of course, because I've become fascinated by Neil Young and love all this stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's just great. I love it. So it's number 10 now. Number 9, I wasn't surprised by this pick because my number 9 is Stage Fright by the band, which is awesome. Every song is great. No filler. Number 8, Sunflower by the Beach Boys. Love this album. It's like the first, well, I guess the Velvet Underground were like indie pop in a way, I guess, but it's got that sort of indie pop vibe in a lot of the songs, which is really cool. And some great sort of more poignant songs in there. And then 7 and 6 really hurt to not put on the list, both in a similar vein. Number 7 is Paranoid by Black Sabbath, and number 6 is Deep Purple in Rock. And those albums rule so hard. Deep Purple in Rock, especially. I listened to it again this week. I was like, this album is so cool. But my top 5 are just, it was one of the easiest top 5s so far in terms of choosing the 5, because like these albums are albums that I have spent so much time with, that I love so much, I've listened to so many times. And what are these albums, I hear you ask? Number 5, All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. Definitely like it better than Plastic Ono Band, so I'm here to carry the weight. George's statement of intent, it's sort of, how Plastic Ono Band is this big dramatic emotional statement. All Things Must Pass is kind of also that, but in a completely different way. It's sort of like this release of all this tension of like being the other Beatle and sort of being dismissed, ignored, underestimated. And with the help of Phil Spector, who is probably like the most famous producer of the time, so if you're going to get anybody to help you, it's a good name to be attached to your project. All these various different styles of pop covered. Everybody knows, My Sweet Lord, What Is Life, If Not For You. But there are some really great deeper tracks in here, like the opening sort of slow simmering I'd Have You Anytime. Love the title track. Just glorious album from start to finish, not counting the third disc. My number 4, Moondance by Van Morrison, classic album in every sense. Almost plays like a greatest hits, particularly side 1. Moondance and Into the Mystic are the obvious ones here, but then like the last 3 songs are all so great and end the album on such a high. It's like closing on Glad Tidings, like just such a feel good sing along song. So great. Production's awesome. There's great session players in here, horns, flutes, all that kind of stuff, and some great poetic lyrics. It's a pretty easy listen, but if you want to focus in, there's some real great songwriting in there too. And then the top 3 of probably right now, this second, like my top 25 albums of all time. So I had to listen to all 3 of them back to back to back to decide the order. But number 3 is Curtis by Curtis Mayfield. Unfortunately, my favorite R&B album of all time, maybe my favorite singer of all time, depending on the day. He just has the silkiest falsetto in the world. The production is perfect. The songs are amazing. He gets the best session musicians you could ask for to flesh it all out. There's like harp and congas, and it's just crazy and awesome. I can't really say anything that I haven't already said in the Anatomy of a Classic episode, which I'm just going to plug quick. Go watch that. And then number 2, After the Gold Rush by Neil Young. Unfortunately, my favorite album by a top 5 artist of all time, and still not number 1. Perfect example of the singer-songwriter genre, the definition of a grower. Every song is great. I'm not even going to try and name ones that are particularly great. It's just like, there is no weak spot on the album. The lyrics are meaningful, but Neil is the star in terms of his performance. He's the relatable and fragile center of the album. It's moving and pretty all at once. And for those of you who love Rockin' Neil, you get Southern Man and When You Dance I Can Really Love. So it's pretty much got everything you'd want. Which means my number 1 is Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. It was my number 6 or number 5 album of all time on my favorite albums list, something like that. It is one of the reasons that I'm doing this channel today. It was one of the first albums that I ever fell in love with. All the hits are fantastic, but I kept going back to songs like Keep the Customer Satisfied and Song for the Asking. it's sort of similar to Moondance. There are quite a lot of albums this year where they are almost like greatest hits albums, where it's just like these artists just pumped out all these well-known songs all on one album. And I don't think Paul Simon gets enough credit as a songwriter. I'm not as big on his solo work, but I think what really elevates, especially this album, is the session musicians and Art Garfunkel's voice complementing all his brilliant songs. Just, oh my God, it is incredible from start to finish. And it is an album that I will never get sick of because, again, it is part of the reason we're here today. So, easy winner in the end, even though After the Gold Rush is like incredible too. It's just 1970. It's easily the best year we've done. Like it's not even close for me. Like I know I had Aerial Ballet and White Album, but I had three this year that were like at the same level. So yeah, very tough, but Bridge Over Troubled Water wins.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. I don't think I saw that coming, but I figured you'd have it at least in your top five. Um, I don't know. Sorry, I need to rewatch your top albums video. I guess it's been a while, and it was a whole serial thing. I don't have the memory that I used to, just from being alive or whatever. Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna share. We'll see. We'll see what we share. All right. Yeah, this was a tough one. I'm gonna say right off the bat though, look, it's the 70s, okay? The Beatles, they're done. They've had their time, and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna talk about them. So I'm glad you guys did. They deserved a shout out, but this is a different era. We've begun. And we'll start at number 10, honorable mentions. Yeah, I'll breeze through these, but number 10 is Deep Purple in Rock. This album rules so hard. Holy smokes. It blew me away. They just keep going. Um, number nine. Number nine, I'm going with It'll All Work Out in Boomland by the band T2. I know you haven't heard of them. Me neither. Well, I have now, but but it's just an incredible prog rock record from these three guys. And if you've never heard of them, just at least give the first two songs a chance. You don't have to be committed to the 20-minute song if you're not into it, but give it a spin. I promise you'll find something you love here. It floored me how I'd never heard of this before. And yeah, check it out. It's very rare music core, I suppose, but I fully understand why. And yeah, T2, not Terminator 2. It's even better. Number 8, I'm going with Come to My Garden by Minnie Riperton. Yeah, so hold the phone. Is she whistling? Yes, kind of. Does she pull it off and make me feel like I'm levitating? Yes, kind of. Thanks for asking. Number 7, I'll go with Abraxas by Santana. Yeah, just phenomenal guitar, catchy songwriting. I'll always love this one. And number 6, the last honorable mention will be Moondance. Oh, it just missed. Yeah, love this record though. It's probably my favorite Van Morrison, and it's just a treat to listen to. So yeah, just a breeze and a lot of fun. Great songwriting, great instrumentation, but not as great as my top 5, which will start with number 5 is going to be Led Zeppelin 3. Yeah, I love basically every song here. The Hats Off to Roy Harper is kind of a weird outro to this record, but it's easy enough to just turn that one off and forget it's on the record. I just this is such a fun direction. Even after Led Zeppelin 2, my beloved, this is such a cool sound for them, a cool direction. Immigrant Song, Tangerine, Since I've Been Loving You, of course. Those are the obvious, but you get Gallows Pole, and That's the Way, and they're just as good to me, and it's definitely among their best. Some say it is their best. Some of us on the call here, some would say that. Number 4, I'm going with Paranoid. Yeah. And yeah, every song is a classic, and as you guys said, like that's for good reason, and that's kind of like the only knock you can really give it, is that it's too popular, and therefore you've heard it too much, which is your own fault. So sorry, I don't care. It's just such a cool standard for like metal to follow. Ozzy sounds incredible. He's so convincing, and everything is so fresh. It's just unbelievable that these riffs were thought of in 1970 because of how much they would influence metal to come. Just it still rocks. You know it, you love it. It's Paranoid, which means number three. Oh man, I feel odd about mentioning this for the first time. I don't think this made an honorable mention. Um, it's Lola versus Power Man and the Money Go Round. Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm as stunned as you are, but it's another stunner from the Kinks. And this one feels bold even after Victoria. Their progression just has kind of floored me. I didn't really listen to the Kinks with everybody, so I'm getting a chance to catch up. And holy smokes, I mean, they just keep pumping out incredible records, and this one is so cool because I feel like it fits right into 1970. Um, you have Strangers, Lola, This Time Tomorrow, and unfortunately you have Ape Man, but the songs in between those don't drag at all. Like it keeps going. I love Get Back in Line, Rats, and the closer, Power Man. I mean, just incredible. I love this record, and yeah, no problems with it whatsoever. It's Lola. You love it. Um, so that's the bronze. The silver is gonna go to Bridge Over Troubled Water. Yeah. And this on re-listen, oh man, I had to upgrade it to a 5. It deserves it. I take the live Bye Bye Love, which a bit of a strange choice, but just don't worry about it. All right. Just enjoy it. Just listen to it. Um, the upbeat songs are really fun and memorable, but the slow ones are like all-time greats. Like they're just like the best songs of all time. So it's just such a fun mix. It's such a breeze to listen to. It's a treat, and just an awesome like last record swan song for them. Glad they didn't burn out with nonsense. Well, maybe they did individually, but whatever. Doesn't matter. This is a fantastic record. And my number one, of course, is After the Gold Rush. Um, because it had to be. Yeah, just like the theme with most of these, every song is a winner. Like, it's so competitive here. But you could put this album on shuffle and I wouldn't skip any of them. The A side is especially flawless, with all 5 basically being all timers for me. I really love After the Gold Rush into Only Love Can Break Your Heart. Those two songs juxtaposed is just incredible. And then you get Southern Man. It's like there's so much to say. It's just so stacked. And but the B-side holds it down for me. I really love I Believe in You, and of course Don't Let It Bring You Down. You cannot go wrong with anything on this record. And to me, it is an absolute worthy winner in a stacked year as 1970.
Who would have thought that I would be the trifecta breaker on Neil
You
Young?
broke it. You broke it. I'm sorry, but you broke it.
And then I bet now in 72, you're both going to mention Harvest and then I won't. And then everyone's going to be like, I thought you were supposed to like Neil Young.
Yeah. Thought
Gosh.
you did, but guess you don't.
No, I guess I hate him. Yeah. So
Yeah.
only number 2 of 1970. So stay the critique. Um, well, that's kind of unexpected. I don't think I saw that coming. Like first, second. Like I know it's a loved album, but
Oh, sure.
yeah, I don't know. That's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think down below of our lists. Do you think Neil Young's overrated? Don't let us know if you do. Um, and yeah, we'd love to see some lists. Obviously, we had quite a bit of variety this year. I think Neil was our only one that all 3 of us had. So yeah, we're going to record songs now. Hopefully, you catch us for that this time next week. and then we'll be heading into 1971, the scary, scary warscape that will be. But, that's a problem for future Tom, Vanessa, and Chris.
Not a
And
problem.
thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you soon.